Hey everyone, it's Matsimus. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining me today. So you know me, I don't do politics. In fact, it just aggravates me just discussing it. But recently, I came across a news article that just baffled me. And when I started reading it, I just shook my head. I'm still shaking my head. It's insane to me that this article is basically informing us that NATO has become so politically correct that it has to appeal to every country's formalities, and I find it crazy, and I'm going to quickly read you this story. So NATO apologized to Turkey on Friday after Ankara pulled its troops from a military exercise in Norway to protest incidents deemed insulting to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and the country's modern founder Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, or Ataturk. The Alliance's Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg, himself Norwegian, moved quickly to say sorry after an angry intervention by Erdogan on an episode that risked creating further strife between Turkey and its allies. The incidents took place during NATO's Trident Javelin exercise in southern Norwegian city of Stavanger, aimed at increasing coordination between allies at headquarters level, which wound up on Friday. They've basically withdrawn all 40 troops from that exercise and protesting that it's not possible to have this kind of alliance. Norway's Defence Minister Frank Bakke-Jensen, speaking to AFP, also expressed a regret over the incident. NATO gave no real details of the nature of this incident, saying that only offence had been caused. There has actually been some information that's come out, though, that's been said that there was an image of Ataturk being used to portray an enemy protagonist in a scenario they were doing on the exercise. And then in a second incident, a chat account was opened under his name during a virtual scenario as a collaborator with a leader of an enemy state. Without going into detail, they said these were potential targets. This is insane. Like, I understand it's probably been incorrectly input, and this is the best part about this article. Let me just get here. So, Turkey has been a NATO member since 1952. Fair play. It's a key member of the alliance, apparently, and tensions have been growing after the crackdown after a failed coup by Ankara's increasingly close alliance with Russia. Now, here's the really interesting thing. Stoltenberg, who was a former Norwegian Prime Minister, apologised and emphasised the importance of Turkey within the alliance. He says, "I apologise for the offence that's been caused. The incidents were the result of an individual's action and do not reflect the views of NATO." Guys, this incident was actually done by a technician. It was done by a technician who was not even part of NATO. He was a civilian contractor who made the error and was not aware that the image that was shown was Ataturk. Now, it's hard to say whether or not he did know or didn't know, but it's not NATO that made that situation. It was civilian. It was a civilian, a Norwegian civilian. And understandably, obviously, Norway is going to try and apologise for it. But here's my stance, Norway. You know what? It's time for you to step up and say, I'm not apologising for this. It's a mistake that was made by one individual. An entire country, an entire alliance as NATO should not be apologising for one person's action that isn't even part of NATO and an exercise that was never intended to cause any kind of disrespect. This is insanity. It is political correctness at its finest. It's very, very unjust. I find that Norway has to even think about apologising to Turkey. I think that this whole situation was totally blown out of proportion. Turkey, what are you doing? If you want to be a member of NATO, be a member of NATO. Something like this should not pull your troops out of an exercise. I think it's very, very belittling to the rest of the NATO members to do such an act. It seems like you're taking it very personally, and you're taking out on the troops on the ground, because at the end of the day, those 40 soldiers that were sent on that exercise may have really wanted to be involved with the NATO exercise. The rest of the Turkish armed forces may want to have been involved, and it just seems very, very, well, it seems insane. So you know what, Norway? This next part of this video is dedicated to you and your armed forces, and thank you so much for being a member of NATO. Without you, of course, the integral community of NATO would not be together, and I know there's a lot of people out there that don't like NATO or want to be a part of NATO. I personally love NATO, and this video is dedicated to you. Thank you, Norway. Stop apologising, be a part of NATO, and be proud to be part of NATO. Let's do it.